Today, you are going to get a front row seat to the incredible Springbok career of 1998 Tri-Nations champion Stefan Terblanche. Stefan, welcome to Front Row Rugby.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's great.
All right, let's have a quick look at today's trivia question before we get started. In 2002, the Springboks lost to a certain European team for the first time in 33 years. Name the opponent. Now, if you know the answer to the question, you can put it in the comment section down below, and we'll also find out if Stefan knows the answer, but we'll do that at the end of our conversation. Stefan, I want to begin in 1998. Talk to me about how you were feeling ahead of your test debut against Ireland.
Yeah, I've been asked that question many times, and every time I love answering it because, as a schoolboy growing up in South Africa, small little town of Swellendam, all I ever wanted to do was play for the Springboks. And as I said to people, I played 100 test matches before my first real test match in our backyard in Swellendam, always against your mates. And you played against Hannes and Fred and Atti and John, and there was always a big game of rugby on. There was always the Springboks against the All Blacks. And we never lost a test match in our backyard. And when you finally get that opportunity to represent your country, to so many emotions, so many, and all of them good. The only bad thing about it is that it passes so quickly before you know it, it's done. But yeah, great. It's just an absolute dream come true. And to play for your country, represent your country, and then to score a few tries in the first game is also something that will always be there.
I think you scored more than just a few, 4 actually. It equaled the Springbok try-scoring record at the time. Were you thinking at that stage, hey, this test match rugby stuff, this is easy?
No, I was young, but I was quite experienced and, had some common sense. And I knew that it's probably definitely going to get harder. Your first season in Super Rugby or Currie Cup Rugby or in Test Rugby is always sort of, I think, with regards to the opposition, it's maybe your easiest because then, you score 4 tries and all of a sudden the opposition takes notice of you and realize, well, hang on, you might have Henry Honeyball on the inside, Peter Miller and Andre Snyman, but we have to keep a watch out for Terblanche on the wing as well. And that's what happened. So, no, I didn't think it was easy at all. I was just very fortunate in that game that, the passes came our way and I finished well that day. I think, as I said, the build-up I was 22 at that time. The build-up was just absolutely perfect, with no injuries. The preparation for the games went well. Just when you physically feel and emotionally you're in a good space, you almost know before you run onto the field that you're going to have a good game. And that day, everything just aligned and it worked out for me.
The Springboks were actually in the midst of a 17-match unbeaten run at that stage. How special was it to be part of that group?
To be honest, I think at the time I didn't really didn't even had that in the back of my mind. I didn't even think about that, to be honest. For me, it was just, trying to establish myself, being given this opportunity to play for the Springboks and make sure that that I fit in within the team dynamics and that I do my job as best for the team. The 17 in a row sort of came later and it became a thing and it was, talked about. But it really, at that stage, I'll be brutally honest, my first couple of games, I didn't think about that.
Now, they say that winning is a habit, and I think that it's fair to say when you watch some of those matches back, yes, there was some big wins like the one over Wales, for example, but there were also some of those victories where you'd say, well, maybe we didn't play that well, or maybe the other team might have won, maybe we scored a try right at the end to win it, that sort of thing. But winning really does become a habit. This is what we get told by coaches and players and that sort of thing. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, just from an everyman point of view?
And it's 100% true. It's so true. I mean, you look at the top teams in the world, and we're talking about rugby here, but you can look at any sport in the world. But let's stay for rugby because that's a sport we love, and I'm not being biased, but it's the best game in the world. Some other teams might disagree with me, team sports, no. But let's stay with rugby, and it's true. If you look at the great teams over the years, who's really done well, and I'm going to start with a team like Munster in Europe, in Ireland. They had O'Gara, Stringer, O'Connell. They just couldn't lose a game. They were, sometimes they were down and out, but they would find a way of winning that game. Then we look at the All Blacks, the number best team in the world for 10 years. I mean, that puts them in the best sporting team of any sport in any country across the world. And sometimes, of course, they would not play well, but whether it's an individual or whether it's a structure that they have in place, they just find ways to win games. And I think the Springbok team of 97 and 98 was like that as well. And the one prime example for me is we got absolutely hammered against the All Blacks. I scored the first try 6 minutes into the game, 1998, Kings Park, packed Kings Park. We beat the All Blacks a couple of weeks before in New Zealand for the first time in 18 years. So a lot of expectation on that game at Kings Park, my home stadium at that stage. And for those of you who've been to Kings Park will know a packed Kings Park is absolutely magnificent, But anyway, so I scored the first try 6 minutes into the game, 5-0 up. And after that, we just got hammered by the All Blacks for 70 minutes. With 12 minutes to go, we were 23-5 down. US van der Westhuizen scored a try. Boks Kinstad came off the bench, scored a try. I put a little chip through. Jonah Lomu got hold of me and put me in the cheat seats with a late tackle. We scored a try, James Dalton, and we won that game 23-20, 24-23. I mean, some of the spectators were already leaving the field, because we got absolutely pumped for 70 minutes, and then they could hear the noise, and some of them tried to get back into the stadium to see the end of the game. And that's what that is all about. The winning becomes a habit. And sometimes you are not the best team on the day. Sometimes you have an off day. It happens, but you find ways to win those games. And I think with the experience obviously plays a big part of it. If you look at that team, we've had a lot of experienced players, but also playing some of the best rugby of their careers at the same time.
I was going to talk about that famous victory in my next question. I actually watched that match with two All Black supporters, so you can imagine how much fun I had towards the end, even though up until the 70-minute mark, it wasn't really that much fun. Stefan, a week later, we beat the Wallabies at Ellis Park to win the Tri-Nations. As it turns out, that was the first time that we did so. What did that feel like?
Yeah, that was special. To win the Tri-Nations or to win any game with the Springboks in a test match is special. But, to win the Tri-Nations for the first time, the first South African team, the first Springbok team to do so was really, I think that was the first time I thought that, wow, this is like a really, I mean, this is what Test rugby is all about. You win every game. You beat the All Blacks. You beat the Aussies twice. You beat the Aussies in Australia. I mean, this is like, wow, this is magnificent. Loving it. But it was special to win the trophy for the first time, and to set the bar for South African teams. And after that, there were a few South African teams who won it. Not too many, but after that there were a few. Of course, the All Blacks are still the most dominant force with regards to winning Tri-Nations trophies.
Let's talk a little bit about the end of year tour in 1998 now. We were still winning, but maybe the performances were not as clinical. It appeared, certainly from sitting at home watching on the couch on the TV, that something wasn't quite right. Now, I've had quite a few former Springboks on the show, and we've tried to talk about it, try to find out what was going on. Some guys say that it was end of year fatigue. Some of the guys say that there was some interference from Alan Solomons with regards to Bobby Skinstead, and that kind of threw some of the guys off their game. What can you tell me?
Yeah, look, I think fatigue is obviously, we see that when we go to a Northern Hemisphere at the end of our rugby season, traditionally at the end of our rugby season, because our season has changed again now with the URC and the Heineken Cup. We can talk about that later. But traditionally in those days, that was the end of our season. If you look at when the European teams come out to South Africa in the June-July period, that was the end of their season, and often their performances weren't great. And we had exactly the same. End of our season, end of year fatigue, a lot of rugby, because when we started Super Rugby in February, then we have the test match period, then we go back to play Currie Cup, and then we get selected, and then we go on tour for the Springboks. So you could end up playing 32, 35 games a year, and at the end of the season, you are fatigued and tired. Yes, the Alan Solomons thing, there were a lot of rumors going on about that. Of course, he was pushing hard for the selection of Bob Skinstead, but we had the guys like Andre Venter, outstanding. Rassie Erasmus was playing six flanker. And then you've had Gary Teichmann, who was a captain. So, while at the same time, Bob Skinstead was playing excellent rugby for his province, and when he came out for the Springboks, he did deliver and he did perform as an impact player. So, of course, a lot of things, but I just think maybe at the end of the season, we didn't have a good game. We played Wales at Wembley. We won 28-20 at the end. I mean, that video session on a Monday with Mick Mallett wasn't very pleasant. I still remember that and still have nightmares about that, because I particularly didn't have a great game. So, I got singled out a few times for a missed tackle or a drop ball, and rightly so. And then we pulled together against Scotland. We beat them 35-10, and then we went on to beat Ireland at the old Lansdowne Road, I think 27-19. A good performance, but, you could see it wasn't. In that game, the Bobskins, was excellent. He scored one try himself and set up one for US, from the halfway line, a 7 running around like a backline player. And then against obviously England, this was now to break the record. We had 17 in a row, and kicked it over my head. Dan Luger caught the crossfield kick. These days we see it often. In those days it wasn't a big attacking weapon, but they got it right, and I think we lost 13-7, to give the record away. So very disappointing to do that, but that's the game. If we also accept that other teams do their homework and they can also play rugby, we won't win every single game we play, even though you try to.
Hey, if you're enjoying this video, why not consider becoming a patron? It's my dream, guys, to do this full time, and with a small financial contribution, you can help me realize that dream. The link and the QR code is appearing on your screen right now, and I'll also put it down in the description area for you to go and click on at a later stage if you would like to do so. And by becoming a patron, I promise there will be great benefits for members. Now let's get back to the interview. And then into 1999, we played a test match against Italy, 101-0, a bit of a record, still a record win against the Italians today. And you scored 5 tries on that occasion to set a new Springbok try-scoring record for an individual. So you held it all by yourself. How special was that?
Yeah, it was, again, special at Kings Park. That was my home stadium at the time. I didn't play the week before. I was on the bench against Italy in Port Elizabeth at the old Boetie Erasmus Stadium. I came on, scored 2 tries, and Nick said he's going to give me an opportunity to play against Ireland. I beg your pardon, against Italy. And yeah, it just worked out. Percy was outstanding, broke the line a couple of times. Huffy was playing at 10, Huffy to Toy, and I was just at the right place, honestly, at the right time, and scored the 5 tries. So again, it was special, but maybe just the way I think and the way I'm wired, we won. I think the biggest cheer of the day was we scored a try right at the end. It was 99-0, and Bram van Straten had to convert to make it 100 points, and I think that was the biggest cheer of the day. But we were brutal that day. We did everything right. Italy, I think, after the first half, they decided, no, they're going home. They've had enough of this this drubbing. So, but very special. But just the way I was wired, I thought that, we won by 100 points, so don't measure against the opposition. But we did play very well that day.
I have to ask you, given that you held the record by yourself outright, what did it feel like when Tonderai Chavhanga set a new Springbok record?
Records will always be broken. I'm just I'm very happy to have kept that record for a bit. And, the 4 tries on debut still stands. The 5 tries at Italy, that'll always be there. But Tonderai against, I think, Uruguay, they won 134-3. East London, Tonderai scored 6, and deservedly so. I always wish I had his speed. He was so quick and, electric. So I had to work a little bit harder to beat defenders where he could just run around them with his speed, and a great finisher of the game.
All right. After that Italy match, we went to Wales to play at the new Millennium Stadium. I've watched some of the highlights, and you can still see that there was some construction taking place in one of the corners of the ground. We lost that match. It was the first time that we'd ever been defeated by the Welsh. But I've also heard, Stefan, that before the match, there was some controversy with regard to Rian Oberholzer, and he gave you guys a talking to before the match a couple of days beforehand. What can you tell me about that?
Yeah, it was true. Obviously, transformation started playing a role, and Rian Oberholzer was, we arrived there on the Monday after our test match against Italy. We flew across on the Sunday night and then arrived there on a Monday and to get the week going. And then he called a meeting with the whole team and said that, with transformation happening in South Africa, the Springbok team will have to look at transforming and making sure that they're fully representative of the whole of South Africa, meaning that they won't support an all-white South African rugby team. And those are the facts. And, we have to be sensitive to its transformation. And, in our country, I think at the beginning stages, we were quite sensitive on how to handle the issue. I think our transformation charter and the way we wanted to do it was also slightly wrong. And we've learned that lesson now, is that you can't start transforming your national body and rugby at the top. That doesn't work like that. You have to start at the bottom, build a base, grassroots, and then build those players and build the base up so that you have the constant stream of good players that can come through and represent your country. on merit. I mean, honestly, I don't care what colour the Springbok team is, as long as it's the best players playing in that position. And I think I share the view of millions of South Africans, and they agree that. And at the start, I think Saru got it slightly wrong, wanting to transform from the top down. It should have been the other way. So yes, it was unsettling for us. All of a sudden, we weren't sure where we're going to go. How's this team going to look that they're talking about? And it did upset us a little bit. But I think we were good enough. We were experienced enough there to put that behind us, go into that game. And the Welsh were just outstanding on the day, the opening of their new stadium. Even though it's 74,000, the Millennium Stadium, they only were 25,000 on the day because of the health and safety. But they were still trying to get it ready. Of course, they had the World Cup there later that year, so they were under pressure to get it ready. But on the day, Welsh were good. Colin Chavez, the ref missed completely where he tripped Corne Krige. Gareth Thomas scored in the corner. But no questions, they were the better team on the day, or they deserved to win on the day. There's a wonderful clip. I sit on the judicial panels now where we do red cards and hearings for players making head contact. There's a wonderful clip of Corne tip tackling Gareth Thomas. Then there's a Welsh centre coming in. Brian van Staten runs in from the side, cleaning, straight contact to the head. There's a punch thrown in there, and South Africa get the penalty. So the game has moved on quite a bit. But I remember that vividly. I love the Welsh. I played rugby there. And on the day they were full value for their victory.
And then at the 1999 Rugby World Cup, we played against some unusual opponents like Spain and Uruguay. Stefan, I remember hearing a radio interview with Joost van der Westhuizen, who you'll remember was our captain for that tournament. And Joost said that the guys didn't really feel as if they were at a World Cup while they were in Scotland. Would you go along with that?
No, I wouldn't. Probably the only reason I say that is because I love Scotland. It's one of my favorite countries in the world to visit. So for me, it was like heaven. We had a training camp in Plettenberg Bay for 6 weeks. My family is down there, so that was magnificent. I trained hard. I was fit. Then I go to Scotland, my favorite country. I love that as well. And no, I didn't feel like we weren't part of the World Cup. Yes, the final would be in Wales, but they shared the World Cup not share, but they had games in Scotland. We played our quarterfinals. We played in Paris against England. So we did move around, and in the last 4 teams, we made it through. Went back to Cardiff to play the 3rd and the 4th place playoff, and then of course the final as well. So I really enjoyed it. I was part of it. We played Scotland in the opening game at Murrayfield, one of my favorite places to play rugby as well. So no, for me, I felt like we were at the World Cup, and I think as a team we were fit, we were ready. But again, the exclusion of our captain Gary Teichmann just before the tournament certainly was a big talking point, and certainly left the team felt a little bit uncertain about who's playing, what's happening, and where are we going.
And then you played just one more test match in the next 2.5 years. What actually happened there?
Yeah, in 2.5 years, obviously 99, 2000. What happened in 2000? I did not get selected. Yeah, there was a new coach coming in after. No, there wasn't actually. I didn't get selected by Mallet. Then Harry Viljoen came in, got back selected again. Rudolf Streauli was in there in the mix as well. It's 2003. So it all happened. I think with players, they go through a bad patch, and I didn't always play good rugby, and certainly at stages I didn't deserve to be in the Springbok team, and maybe played a bit on reputation. And at stages, I thought that I was playing the best rugby of my career and didn't get selected for the Springbok team. So it's all about opinion, about the coaches, and it is what it is. It's very disappointing not to play for your country when you've had a few test matches, but it's a privilege. It's not a right to play for the Springboks.
And then you were back in the squad in 2002. How exciting was it to be back?
It was quite emotional. We were playing against Wales in Argentina, Wales in Bloemfontein. I shed a few tears before the game, and it was just emotional. It was great to be back and playing rugby for the Springboks again. So a lot of responsibility when you do that, but great coming back and to represent the country again.
How much different would you say the Springbok setup was in 2002 compared to when you first came into the side in 98?
Yeah, the game's moved on. I think there will be changes whether we want it or not. It's just the way the world is moving. Players are getting younger. the game's becoming more and more professional. There's more and more pressure on players. And then on the other hand, you're better prepared because there's scientific evidence to show how you should train, what you're not trained. The way we started training when I was playing for the Springboks in 98 compared to the way in 2002 was already different, a lot different. And it was only 4 years, if you look at the 98 to 2002. So the game's moved on, and there's always changes. I think it's crucial for the game to move with times, but also trying to retain the amateur values, what makes rugby so good.
Okay, Springbok fans, my friend Mike Greenaway has a new book out, The Fireside Springbok. As a seasoned rugby writer with over 25 years of experience, Mike unveils the untold stories that define the greatness of the Boks. His unique perspective, gained through unparalleled access to the team, makes this book a must-read for true rugby enthusiasts. The Fireside Springbok is on sale now. Stefan, you also featured prominently in the team throughout 2003, and we know that the Springboks were struggling at that stage. For example, there was that record defeat at the time to the All Blacks, 52-16. What do you think was the problem at that moment?
I think probably not a settled team. Our coach was Rudolf Streauli. He also tried some new things. Some of them worked. Some of them certainly didn't work. Before the 2003 World Cup, we're probably going to get there as well. We decided to go camping and go to Tonderai. That was an absolute disaster. I'm certainly not scarred by it. At that stage, you just guts it out and get on with it, even though it was physically and emotionally very tough and hard. And I get the point for it. I thought the timing of it was extremely bad. 3 weeks before you play in the World Cup, you build up your whole year. You're at the right weight. You're strong. You're fast. You got everything right, and then you're going to break your body down in the bush for four days with no water or food and sleep deprivation. I didn't think that worked well. So I think that was unsettling. Again for the team, and going into that World Cup with that preparation, we had absolutely no chance of getting through. We lost the pool game against England quite comfortably. Of course, England with Johnny Wilkinson, they went on to win the World Cup in 2003 in Australia, and then played a little bit better against Samoa. People were even saying Samoa could turn them over, but 60 points to 10 in Brisbane. We were outstanding. It was probably our best game of the World Cup, and then the All Blacks in the quarterfinals in Melbourne. Carlos Spencer at number 10 on song, Joe Rokokoko, and we had absolutely no chance to win that game, and they were just too good.
What did you make of Streauli as a coach?
I think he had good. I always got on well with him. I could understand his mentality, maybe because I'm Afrikaans, so sort of we sort of grow up saying, just get on with it, suck it up, listen. And do your job. And I think I always have that sort of mentality. And I also trust the coach with regards to what he wants to do. I think, I've played under a whole lot of different coaches, and every coach, there's something good that I can find, something that I enjoyed, and something that I had to manage, and something that I didn't quite enjoy. And that's life. And no, I think he was a rugby guy at heart. Some of his ideas just didn't work. He was tough physically. Often you arrive at a training session and said, you can leave the rugby ball today. We're going to do some fitness, and then you're in for a tough hour or hour and a half on the pitch. But as I said, there's something good and something that I had to manage with every other coach. All
right, Stefan, who was your toughest opponent?
The toughest opponent from an individual point of view was certainly, the best player I've ever played against was, there are two, but one stands out for me is Joe Roth. He was an Australian winger, fullback, centre, fly half. He could play anywhere. His running lines were exceptional. He was just a clever as my PT teacher at school, Mr. Vestrad, would say. He was a good footballer, and he just understood the game of rugby, and a wonderful guy, quite fast, elusive, long strides. He was just a magnificent rugby player. And then a smaller guy that I played with at the Ospreys, pound for pound, the best rugby player in the world at that stage. Shane Williams started off as a scrum half and then became best and the highest try scorer in the Welsh rugby history on the wing. So those two, they stand out for me.
Is there a particularly funny moment that you can share with us from your time with the Springboks?
There are many, and sometimes you have to laugh. And I've told this story 1,000 times. So sorry for those of you who heard it. My first test against the All Blacks the night before the game in the team room in Wellington, pissing down with rain, and it's cold, and sitting around the dinner table, having dinner. Asked Gary Teichman, Gary, what do I do tomorrow when we face the haka? He said, it's very simple, Stefan. In New Zealand, you stare your direct opposition, you find him, stare him in the eye, accept the challenge, because that's how you respect the New Zealand rugby culture, and that's how you respect your direct opposition. He, of course, knew the answer to the next question, and he said, well, who's your direct opposition? At that stage, of course, there was a monster running around 1.96 meters tall, 122 kgs, running the 110.5 seconds by the name of Jonah. So I said to Gary, it's Jonah. He said, oh, shit. He said, well, don't stare him directly in the eye. You're just going to upset him. Rather look at my direct opposition. So I excused myself from the dinner table, ran down to my room, locked myself in my room, and cried myself to sleep. But the next day we beat the All Blacks 13-3. So, I mean, that's quite a funny story. People laugh at that. I still laugh to this day because I can remember, being nervous. Of course, you play the All Blacks in New Zealand, and your captain tells you not to upset your direct opposition, jokingly, but yeah, it certainly worked, and we had a good game the next day.
I remember waking up at 4 a.m. to watch that as a schoolboy. What a special memory indeed. Stefan, is there a current player that you see that you admire?
I do. Yes, there is. I mean, there are a few, and for different reasons. I mean, I've got the utmost respect for our captain, Siya Kolisi, South African captain. The way he handles it, how sincere he is. I mean, the amount of press and the amount of requests, and people always want a piece of him. And in that position, yes, that is your job, but the way he handles it is just, and how graciously he can address, and, just after games, even when the Springboks lose, he just seems to have it all together. Of course, a lot of pressure. I admire him for that, without a doubt. Then Alan Wynne-Jones, the Welsh, captain, he's recently retired from. And actually, we were talking about it last night. 158 Test matches, 12 for the British and Irish Lions, 170 Test matches. I don't know how many games for the Ospreys. I mean, that's just impressive. I admire him for his longevity. And when I was at the Ospreys, he was a youngster coming through. He was in our academy then, and he started training with us. And to see how he's grown from a young man into an absolute legend of the game and the way he's handled it, I admire him for that. And then from a playing point of view, I admire a guy like Jason Colby. The amount of work he gets through, what he can do with his body. I mean, 74, 75, if that, in kilograms, how physical he is, his ability to finish, to make the tackles, and to match up, as I said, pound for pound, along with DuPont, the best players in the world for me at the moment. And I admire him for that.
And what are you up to these days?
I have to work for a living now, unfortunately. I can't play sport anymore, but I'm doing what I love. I've got a little fitness business, training people. That's always been my passion, sharing my experience. I picked up over 20 years being coached by the best fitness coaches from around the world. So I'm busy doing that together with my wife and friends. We've got a small golf cart business we recently bought. We got a little bit of property and a cooling business, Slim Malicious, that we're working on. So pretty entrepreneurial, but we've got to pay the bills with three kids at school and soon off to varsity. But yeah, doing what I love at the moment. I'm in Paris. I do work for World Rugby on the judicial panels, meaning that when a player gets cited or red carded, we sit in on those hearings. We do the hearings and then need to decide whether the player needs to be sanctioned or not. Not always a great job, and you feel for the players with the laws changes these days, and especially with regards to head contact. But I think as an ex-player, we sort of have a little bit of better understanding about what really happens on the field, where the lawyers and the chairmen can run it. They understand the letter of the law, but sometimes on the field things happen, and we just want to give a little bit of perspective and try and present the players with a better chance of getting back on the field playing.
Sounds good to me. Stefan, let's finish off by looking at the trivia question again. In 2002, the Springboks lost to a certain European team for the first time in 33 years. Name the opponent. Do you know the answer, Stefan?
I think I do, because I was fortunate to miss that tour, because it wasn't a good tour for South Africa. The week before the semi-finals of the Currie Cup, and it's the strangest thing. We played Griquas, and I scored my fourth try. I scored early in the second half, and as I dived over the line, I did my hamstring. I don't know what happened, so I missed the semi-finals against the Bulls, the Sharks, which we lost. I think the Bulls went on with Derek Hougaard to win the Currie Cup against the Lions a week later, and then was injured and couldn't make the tour. I think we lost to France. We also had a record loss against England, I think, on that same trip. So the team I think you're referring to, and I think the score was 21-6, that would be Scotland at Murrayfield.
That is exactly right, Stefan. 21-6 at Murrayfield. First time since 1969 that the Scots beat the Springboks. And I think we'll just leave it there and not discuss it any further. Stefan, let me say it was lovely having you on Front Row Rugby today. An absolute pleasure. Lovely to listen to all those old stories. And I hope that we can have you on again in the future.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for watching. Last time on Front Row Rugby, I had 1995 Rugby World Cup champion Narka Drotsky on the show. You can go and watch that. It's appearing on your screen right now. Next time, we will have Lawrence Sepaka here.